episode number 220 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I am so excited to welcome today Chelsea Leupold, who is a fertility coach and a graduate of my fertility coaching program. Chelsea is a board-certified health and fertility coach, reiki healer, and yoga instructor. She holds a master's degree in health coaching and herbal medicine and has helped hundreds of people reach their goals by making small but substantial changes. She's a senior health coach at Visana Health, a women's health company that focuses on holistic care. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. Welcome to the podcast, Chelsea.
Hello. Thank you, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here with you.
So awesome. Well, I'd love for you to share your story. I'm really excited because you are a graduate and certified with the Wholesome Fertility Method. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been such an honor to do your training and to work with you over the last few months. I guess I'll kind of give you some background about why I decided to become a fertility coach. Like many people who end up in this field, I had a lot of struggles and, a interesting journey to become a mom. So I guess it started about maybe 5 years ago. My cycles had always been irregular, and most doctors just said, "Oh, it's fine. It's normal. It's normal." And finally, I hadn't had a period in 5 or 6 months, and I was going for, a checkup. I said, "I don't think this is normal. Like, I really would like to know what's going on here." And the doctor ran a bunch of tests. And one test that she ran was for prolactin, which is a hormone that, you produce when you're breastfeeding, but can cause you not to ovulate and not to get a period. And that came back elevated. So that was the first that I had heard about this hormone, or that this was something that could be affecting, my fertility. And from that, she ordered an MRI, because a lot of times what happens is you have a pituitary benign tumor that can be producing. Yeah, I think you shared that you might have had a similar experience.
I had the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we'll continue your story, but I don't know if it's exactly the same.
And that was kind of inconclusive. And then I went to Penn Fertility, Penn Endocrine, and they did a whole workup and all different tests. And it still was kind of like, we're not really sure why this is happening. They wanted me to do another MRI, and they said I could start medication. And at the time I wasn't married yet, and I wasn't really thinking about having children yet. So I was like, I'll worry about this later. And I looked at some holistic things that I could do about vitamins and things like that. And I did start to make some changes, and I did kind of get my period to more regular. It wasn't monthly, but it was more like every 60 days, every 40 days. So once we did get married, and I decided, okay, I would like to, have a baby in the future. I went back for fertility to Penn Fertility, and they said again, "Hey, you can start this medication." I said, "All right, well, I'm going to try for a couple months on my own." Again, making some more diet changes. I brought in some herbs. I already had a background in herbal medicine and yoga, and was just very holistic minded. And I thought I'd really like to try to do this naturally. And I did that for a few months. This was 2020. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, I probably do need the medication. Went back to meet with the doctors. They ran some more tests. And I just had this feeling. I was like, I think I could be pregnant. So I found out that I was pregnant before starting the medication. And that was just, I was taking Vitex, which is an herb that, can help with progesterone, which is one of the things that this prolactin affected. So I was so excited. We were, newly married, even though it was kind of like the middle of the pandemic. It was just like a bright light of, being pregnant. I went in for my 10-week ultrasound, and they said the baby didn't have a heartbeat. And I remember I was just devastated. I was
Yeah.
all alone. And it's just anybody who's gone through that, my heart goes out to them, because it's one of the most difficult things I think that we can go through as women.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't a great experience. They were just very cold, and I just felt so alone and so confused. And could I have done something, and nobody really listened to me. I kept saying, was it this? Is it the prolactin? Is that what? Oh, no, that's not what it is. That's not what it is. It's normal. A lot of people have miscarriages, and they scheduled me for a DNC for the next day. And I didn't know any different. So I said, okay. And that ended up getting messed up. It was just very traumatic altogether, the whole situation.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough that I was able to get pregnant pretty quickly after. I did start the cabergoline because I was taking a bit to get my period, and I thought, okay, I want to try and fast track this, of course. And I got my pregnant within like 2 months. And I was so nervous, of course, after having a loss, and unfortunately, that pregnancy ended in a loss as well. Intuitively, I kind of felt it, and I didn't know if it was fear or if it was my intuition, but I found out pretty early with that one that one wasn't developing. And there was a chromosomal issue, which I later found out. And I was starting to figure out how to advocate for myself, how to ask for certain tests, early ultrasounds, and all of that. And by this time, I was just kind of like blaming myself. Is there something wrong with me? All those questions that kind of come up, starting to get into that category of recurrent pregnancy loss. And a lot of times I found out that they don't even consider it recurrent pregnancy loss until 3 losses.
Yeah,
Some
it's
doctors,
crazy.
yeah, I know. It's like I have to go through this 3 times before you'll even start some testing to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, and I think because I had the underlying condition of the prolactin, they were kind of maybe a little bit quicker to say like, okay, let's check things out. So they did all the testing to make sure, everything was okay with me and with my husband. I got back on the cabergoline, and I said, look, when I get pregnant again, I want to do progesterone because I think that could help. And again, we were really lucky to meet a fertility doctor that really listened to me, and she really held me, and she really supported me. And I had already made some changes. I was already living pretty healthy, but I feel like there's nothing like wanting something so bad as like wanting to have a baby that makes you want to make all the changes and willing to take whatever supplements. Yeah. So I did a lot of research and read a lot of books and talked to a lot of people, and really detoxed anything else in my life that could be contributing to these losses. And those 9 months were very, very stressful. I did a lot of ultrasounds, a lot of blood work. I stayed on progesterone
This is your third pregnancy.
This is the third pregnancy, yes. Stayed on progesterone until 24 weeks. And I'm lucky to say, I had my daughter November of 2021. She just turned 14 months. And, it's crazy to think back to that, because it's just like, it seems like a different lifetime. And then to kind of speed things up to today, during that pregnancy, I ended up getting diagnosed with something called cholestasis.
Oh, yes.
And I had to get induced at 37 and 5. Luckily, like that went really smoothly, the actual birth part. But it was really scary because, they were talking about what could happen, the what ifs of stillbirth or this or that. And I wanted to have, I had my birth plan, and I wanted to have as natural of a labor as possible. But also at that point, I just wanted my baby to be healthy.
Absolutely. Actually, let's talk about that because I did actually have an episode on this. It's a very important topic, but just
Mhm.
explain to the listeners if they haven't heard that before what it is, because it's definitely something that's rare and a lot of people
Yeah.
don't know about.
Yeah. So ICP is another term for it. And what happens usually around your third trimester is you start feeling itchy, is the main symptom. And your liver kind of shuts down due to
Hmm.
the excess hormones. I actually think that taking the progesterone until 24 weeks on top of the stress and who knows what else my body was going through with all that hypervigilance that I had, it was borderline. I think 9 was the cutoff. I was 10.
Hmm.
So I was very borderline. But my doctor was like, hey, we don't mess around with this. So as soon
Yeah.
as we got that result back, um, she said, I want you to come in tomorrow to get induced. So your liver shuts down. And what can happen is the bile acids in your body build up because your liver's not getting rid of them as they should. And it could affect the baby's heart because it causes like dysrhythmias in the baby's heart. So there's different research, but usually they do want to deliver you, I think, by like 38-ish weeks.
And they give you medication as well, right?
Yeah, they do. But the frustrating thing is because there's only certain labs that do these tests, it takes 7 days to get the results.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
it's not like one of those things where you can take the medication. So I never got started on the medication because by the time we found it, it
Hmm.
was already like, okay, you're going to deliver. So some people do get a medication which can help keep their numbers down
Hmm.
because some people have it and their bile acids are like 40 or 100, and that's when you really need the medication. Um, so my daughter was small when she was born. She was 5 pounds, 16 ounces.
Hmm.
Um, she was healthy and she's still tiny, but I say she's little, but she's fierce.
Yeah. Cute. It's
Yeah.
an amazing story. And so when you were going through this, have you figured out what it was? Do you think it was a prolactin that caused the earlier on miscarriages?
So for the first one, I don't know. I kind of think that it could have been the prolactin. I was taking the Vitex, which
Hmm.
was, I think, helping me, helping my progesterone to stay at the level it needed to in the beginning.
Hmm.
And then I couldn't get any advice on what to do. Should I just stop taking? So I stopped taking the Vitex,
Hmm.
um, which I think affected my hormones and made it so I couldn't sustain the pregnancy. I really wanted to get testing done. And that's one of the reasons I had the DNC rather than just letting it pass naturally. And they never did the DNC. So I never got any answers.
Hmm.
The second pregnancy, I was actually able to find an organization that I was able to, and I'm sorry if this is triggering for anybody if that's been through it, but just to share honestly and transparently that I was able to have that loss at home and still do the testing through Natura and find out that it was a chromosomal issue with the second,
Hmm.
which gave me peace of mind that it wasn't my body. It was, I think it was trisomy 16,
Hmm.
and the baby was not compatible with life. So, and that is just something that sometimes happens, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but I'll never know with the first one. Was it a chromosomal issue? Was it a hormone issue? So
I know a lot of people don't know that that's an option, is
yeah.
to have it at home and test it at home.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find out about that?
I did a lot of research. I did a
Yeah.
lot of digging because the DNC was very traumatic, and why I think there are certain cases where it's important to do it. It can cause others, you can get scarring and other issues. Um, and I really wanted to try to control it. So I stayed home. I had my heating pad, my teas. I took specific herbs that were going to help. And it honestly, it was emotionally really difficult,
Hmm.
but physically, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Um, versus the DNC, I just hate hospitals, and it was just so sterile that whole
Yeah.
experience. So.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've talked to quite a lot of people that describe it the same way you do. It's very traumatic, and one of the things, I mean, there's so many things to it, and so many reasons why it's so traumatic. But a lot of what I hear is like I wasn't heard, my questions weren't answered. I just wanted to talk to somebody. Nobody like would tell. It's almost like you're getting kind of a generic answer. Okay, bye bye. Like we're just go home and try again. Like it's like this dismissal that happens over and over again, which is so frustrating. And unfortunately, we can't really change how the system works, but at least, like you said, advocating for yourself, it's number one. It's so important. And then also finding the right practitioner, and also really coupling East and West, like kind of natural versus Western, because you need both in many circumstances. And also, did you find your RE right away, or is it something that you looked and searched and found somebody that you liked?
Yeah. So, Fertility IQ is a resource that I always share with people. It's a great way that you can go on. You can look in your area for different fertility clinics and find a lot of patients will write reviews of, I had, this diagnosis, this was my treatment, and I ended up getting pregnant. And I found a doctor on there that was very highly recommended and, within my insurance network. So that's really how I found her. I had met with another clinic. I remember I met with the clinic after my first miscarriage to do a consult.
Mm-hmm.
And at this time, I had just had the one loss and she was already talking about IVF.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was
I've
just so
heard that.
medicalized. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, IVF, like, I don't understand. Like, I'm not having trouble getting pregnant. All I've had is one loss. I just want to understand, like, is it my vitamin D? Because I know that could be a fact. Like, I just wanted help and support. And she was already like, well, maybe we should do IVF. And I was just very turned off by that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I don't blame you. Like, and it happens so much. Like, you go there. This is another thing I always say, like, in many cases, that's what is going to happen, unfortunately, because you want to go to the reproductive endocrinologist because they have so much knowledge and they can help you uncover, like, more so than an OB, because that's what they do. But it always comes with this, like, well, maybe you should try IVF. And that's not what people are coming from. So I always say, just go in knowing that is a possibility that you're going to get suggested IVF, and know what you're going to need them for, and then just get what you need and leave. If that's not what you're interested in, if you want IVF, that's a different story. But sometimes you just want to know and uncover like what is going on. You want to get answers.
Yep. And that was exactly really what I wanted to do. I wanted answers. I wanted to do anything I could to prevent this from happening again. And, I have a background in nursing and I feel pretty, empowered when it comes to my healthcare decisions. And I read a lot of peer reviewed journals and I go in there and they probably hate me because I'm like, well, what about this study? And what about that? But not everybody's that comfortable too. So it can be difficult if you're not feeling empowered and secure in your decisions to say, no, I'm not interested in this invasive treatment. I'm not interested in, IVF just because my insurance will cover it. So that's one of the things that I work with people too, is like, they're the doctors, but like, it's your body, it's your decision of what 100%. You want to do and when you want to do it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. So I was really happy that I found a doctor that was going to listen to me and collaborate with me and not just say, this is what you're doing. This is, because even so, it was still like, the testing and the blood work and this, and I didn't have to even go. We were about to do the saline,
HSG.
Yes, exactly. And I ended up not having to do that because I got pregnant. But even just having a transvaginal ultrasound can be invasive.
It can, yeah.
It's all difficult. So the more that you can really advocate for yourself and feel empowered going into those situations, I think helps us to not feel as vulnerable.
And that's the thing. A lot of times you're coming in, you're really putting all of your trust in the practitioner or whoever it is that knows, or you're coming to for knowledge. But I always say this on the podcast, it's so important to go to multiple people and really get a feel for it, because ultimately, like, in your heart, you just feel it, like something's off. I'm not getting my questions answered. Like, that you have something, and then you get an answer. It just doesn't feel complete. When it doesn't feel complete, that means keep going until you feel complete with your answers, because if it doesn't feel complete, it's not complete. Like, it in your heart, something's not right. I don't feel like I've gotten the information that I came for. And ultimately, you don't have to have a degree to know that.
Yeah. Tuning into that intuition is so important.
Yeah, for sure. And what I love about you, Chelsea, is that you have great questions. And we've worked together. We've worked together through the course and through the certification. And Chelsea came in with loads of information to begin with. She definitely does not lack with her own credentials. So she came in already armed with, because you have a background in coaching and health coaching before you even started.
Yeah, I've always been passionate about, I have a background in yoga, and through yoga and, getting my master's in coaching and herbal medicine, I've just always been really, really curious about Ayurveda and Chinese medicine and all these different paths and how they can offer healing and something different. I think Western medicine in certain circumstances can be really, really helpful. And I'm really glad that we have it.
For sure.
But I think that there's so many things that we can do before we get to, Western medicine that can really help us on our paths.
And how did you find the RE that you said was amazing, that you really felt connected with? And talk about the difference that you felt with her versus like other people, because it's important that people hear this if they're in the same situation.
Yeah, it was through, I think, Fertility IQ that she was recommended, and she was at Penn Fertility. So I live in Philadelphia. So of course, Penn is one of the top hospitals and places here. And I was already using Penn Endocrine to get some testing done. So it was nice to kind of stay in the same network. But I just met with her, and of course, everything was virtual, and my husband was on the call as well. And I was in a delicate space. I had just been through 2 losses, and I really just needed someone that had a really good bedside manner.
Mm-hmm.
And the research that I've actually done is people who have a team that they feel really supported and encouraged by have a lot better outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I just immediately felt held by her and supported by her. And she really, like I mentioned, she wanted to collaborate, and she said, "This is my plan." And I could tell she like believed in me. She believed that I could, get and stay pregnant, which was huge, because at the time I didn't know if I believed in that. So
that's huge.
She's been wonderful. Yeah. And then my OB, I actually found through a local mom's like Facebook group that I was just searching for OBs. And she's been, again, like a rock star and so wonderful and supportive. Because I would call her and be like, "I haven't felt the baby move in 3 hours. Is everything okay?" And, she'd be like, "Come in, we'll let you, check the heartbeat," and never made me feel like I was crazy or, worrying too much. And that really, really helped.
Yeah, totally. It's so crazy how I think we're made to feel crazy when we ask questions. And that does happen sometimes. I mean, they're overwhelmed and, understaffed. And so sometimes they don't have the patience, but it just makes such a huge difference when you do have somebody who will take that extra time to help you alleviate your fears. And it really is traumatic. It's like PTSD. When you're going through it again, that's another thing, is when you go through losses. Something that doesn't really get acknowledged a lot is that when you do go through a pregnancy, yes, you're happy you're pregnant, but every moment you're kind of thinking and worried, and it's very hard to turn that off, because it really feels like PTSD, like you're reliving a real traumatic event. again.
Mhm.
So everything that you're going through is reminding you of that because you're pregnant again. And when you're going through that after loss, pregnancy after loss, it's a whole thing. And having not just like, physical care, but really getting that emotional care really goes a long way. And also having people on your team that believe in you and have the patience to really be there for you is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I left this out, but there were a lot of things along the way with my daughter's name is Kenna, with her when I was pregnant with her, that I woke up at 11 weeks and I was bleeding.
Mm,
And I thought I was having another loss, and I went to the ER, and it ended up being a subchronic hematoma
right.
where the placenta started to kind of move away. Um, and they said, well, it could continue. You could be fine, or you could lose it, and so that really, again, talk about PTSD. That was like another small trauma that was happening, or big trauma. Um, and I was like, what do I do? And everybody's like, you can't do anything. You just have to, like, hope that it gets better. But then I actually got into the research, and I found some studies that showed that linoleic acid, I can never say it, but basically what's
Linoleic
in
acid.
chia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That there's research that and pomegranate juice um, can help the placenta like reattach. So of course I like got all the seeds that had it in it, and the nuts, and
Hmm.
like, and and whether it be a placebo or what, who knows, but it made me feel a little bit in control, that I was
Right.
doing
You're doing
something.
something.
Yes. And obviously that healed, thank goodness. Um, so it was, and I kind of, and I was aware that my mindset was affecting my pregnancy, and the stress was not good.
Hmm.
And that was a frustrating point, because I know how powerful mindset is. So I did affirmations, meditations. I had a certain prayer that I would say every night before every appointment. I did acupuncture. I did as much as I could, and also tried to be really gentle with myself, knowing that the fears were going to be there.
Hmm.
They were there because I cared so much and I wanted this so badly. Um, and really putting energy into, like, I remember I got so into just like decorating the nursery and envisioning walking home. Like I had this vision of like carrying the car seat through the front door,
Mm.
and having that vision that, like, this is happening, this baby's coming home, and this baby, I kept saying I would, healthy and happy baby, healthy and happy baby. And anybody who knows my daughter, she's a healthy and happy little girl,
Oh, that's beautiful.
So yeah, I really just tried to um, accept that I was going to have those negative thoughts, and that I wasn't going to be able to get rid of those and not beat myself up. And how could I try to overpower them with some positivity too?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it takes a lot of courage to allow yourself to envision that because after loss, because sometimes
Yeah.
it's kind of this like innate thing that we have is like, oh my God, I'm afraid to like let myself be in that space because what if, and so you kind of
Yeah.
go with that, like it's kind of those internal feelings, this little internal battle that you have. So I think it takes a lot of
Mm-hmm.
courage to actually allow yourself to really envision it and to really embrace this beautiful like ending or a story or journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to be vulnerable, because there's that place of, and I think anybody on a fertility journey that's struggling to get pregnant, there's this vulnerability where you have to say, this is something that I want so badly, and I don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Even if there's a party that does know, like, that soul piece that says, I know, there's always like that little vulnerability. And even at my baby shower, I couldn't really enjoy it, because I was like, there was that fear of, what if this happens and it doesn't work out,
Mhm.
So and I give people so much courage who um, are willing to kind of like lean into that fear and still push through and say, be vulnerable with their true desires.
Yeah, it's like trusting that unknown, which could be
Mm-hmm.
really it's definitely a practice. It's a real
Yeah.
big challenge. And you had another thing that I love about you is, well, you went all in when we did the fertility certification. And of course, like I said, you came in with so much knowledge to begin with. And I think part of it's your background and also your own curiosity through your own journey and really uncovering a lot of these little things, even like you were saying about the chia seeds and all the different information that you were going through and the research. And you had some great results. So I'd love for you to share your own results with your fertility coaching that you've had with your clients.
Yeah. So it's been such an amazing journey. And I often say, like, I never wish loss or fertility challenges on anybody, but I do know that I had to go through that to get to this point where I'm able to do this work and be so passionate about it. And really just it just fills me up working with fertility clients. So so I just found out recently another one of my clients is pregnant. So I'm very, very
Congratulations.
excited. Thank you. So one of my first clients that I was working with had just started working with me after a failed round of IVF. She was told, you have to do IVF, the diagnosis, low AMH and bad egg quality, and she wasn't able to get any eggs that fertilized through IVF. And I started working with her, and she was so just like excited and ready to jump in. I love that when clients come and they're ready to make all the changes. And we started working together, and I work on 3 pillars with clients: lifestyle, which is a lot about like endocrine disruptors and getting rid of those in the house; body, which is supplements and diet; and then mindset, which is a lot about like affirmations and meditation. And they all kind of blend together, but those are kind of the 3 big categories that I've seen really be impactful. So she, we started working together, and very quickly she got pregnant. So now she's probably she's probably
So she
like
got
18,
pregnant
19.
naturally after
Yes.
many failed IVF
Mm-hmm.
rounds, and then, people telling her that she had a low reserve and,
Yep.
yada, yada, the whole.
Exactly. And then another one of my clients, she actually has a son that she had through IVF and went through another round of IVF, which sadly she had the transfer, was pregnant, and then lost it early in the pregnancy. And we started working with me right after that. And I just found out that she's pregnant naturally too, after being
Amazing.
told you have to do IVF. And she
Mm-hmm.
even has embryos that are that she could use, but she said, I really don't want to go through all the hormones, all the treatments. I want to try to do this naturally if I can.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just so happy for them. And it's just like the best feeling in the world when you get that positive pregnancy picture on the text. So
Yeah, it's
uh,
amazing. And you are a natural. I have to say, Chelsea, you are a natural. And I really do feel this is why I get excited when I was working with you, because you are so aligned in this field. I feel like I feel the passion from you. And you also have a really good vision. You could see it. And you can also, because of what you've gone through, I think your belief in the people that you're working with, it's huge. It really does make such a difference seeing that potential within people, because you
yeah.
know the potential that you had and you wished people would see in you when you were working with practitioners. And I mean, it really can change the trajectory of a person's journey to have that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you for saying that. I'm so glad that I found you and that we were able to get connected, and I was able to feel so aligned with you and your method and your abilities, to work with women, because I just really feel that there's a big need for this kind of support, for this kind of work. And I think that it's growing, this need. And I really just want women to be able to trust their bodies and to have faith that they are able to get and stay pregnant. Um, because oftentimes I think that, talk about mindset, that they kind of get pushed into this, oh, you have this diagnosis, and then it becomes a label, and then the
Yes.
infertility, and then they start believing that, and you have
Yep.
to do IVF. And it's just, it can just really, really affect one's self-esteem. And, so I just really like, one of my big things is just really empowering women that to trust their bodies. And yeah, maybe there is some baggage there that we can unpack together. Maybe there are some beliefs that you're holding on to, or that won't be able to get pregnant, but we can work to kind of unpack that and work past that together, which I don't think a lot of fertility clinics are doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing that I constantly say on the podcast, really just to try drive it home, is that you're going to get something from everybody. There's like a little, like, you're going to get one perspective, which is great and is very necessary from doctors, and you'll get another perspective from a coach who sees from a different kind of lens, but a little bit of everything, to give you that support, to believe in you, and somebody who's also seen it, like through their own journey and also through the journeys of the people that they've been helping, that there is this possibility and there is a potential. The body's so powerful, and there's so much that can be done on so many levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, to kind of, again, like pull it back to my journey and my story. And this lens that I'm seeing this through is, so I went through fertility clinics and medication and progesterone and all these ultrasounds to get pregnant with my daughter. And I thought that it was going to be the same way when we decided to try for number two. Well, surprise, it didn't end up that way. As I speak to you now, I'm 29 weeks pregnant, and I found out my hormones normalized, the prolactin normalized completely after I had my daughter.
Incredible.
Isn't that incredible? So I for this pregnancy, it was a surprise. And it's just been a completely different journey. I didn't need any progesterone. My body just did it on its own. And it's been much different. And I do think that, my body kind of healed itself in a lot of ways. And that's something that does happen. Sometimes, you hear stories of somebody had to go through IVF, or, they had so much trouble getting pregnant, and then they had a baby, or even they adopted, and then, they were able to get pregnant naturally. So there's so much that the medical community doesn't understand about pregnancy still.
Yes, they try to predict. They try everything they can to predict, but the body's so unpredictable.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when it comes to fertility and giving birth, because it's like this miracle that you're bringing this life into the world. And yes, there's all these cool technologies and things that we can do, but at the end of the day, you're bringing a soul into the world.
You are. And as I'm speaking to you, actually, it's cool because I see this ray from the light above you coming down. And I was noticing that when you were saying that. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So there's, and that's why I know you do a lot of work with mindset, and I think that's just so important. And this work too is to really just have that faith. If you're familiar with this book, Spirit Babies.
Love it.
Yeah. To kind of like call in, that baby and call in that soul, and know that, they're out there, they're waiting for you. And sometimes they just, I think, they're waiting for us to kind of like make that space for them. That's why it was so important for me to like envision this nursery and envision this space, and let the baby know, hey, we're ready for you. We're waiting for you. We're here. We're, okay with you coming. So, because sometimes I think they sit in the clouds and they kind of wait.
Yeah, it's such a mysterious thing. And I've heard a lot of times. I mean, this has happened a couple of times where my patients actually either wrote or spoke to them and felt, a lot of times it came on their own, and then shortly after got pregnant. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen for every person, but there is an invitation that happens. I truly believe that there's an invitation that happens, and there's so many dials that need to be aligned. Yeah. And at the same time, even with that, it's a mystery because it's partly us, partly them, partly, it's like this dance that happens that is so multi-faceted. But it's just an interesting process that you can never really pin down and and that's the mystery. That's kind of like, obviously we can do a lot, but there's this other element that's just a mystery that is totally out of our hands. And I think that that's what is so difficult, because in life we feel like we control so many things, but that is one thing that we cannot really fully control.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's also part of what makes this work so rewarding.
Yeah.
Is that etherical element that is
It's
in,
sacred.
yeah, there's that third party in the room when you're working with somebody,
Mm-hmm.
that you kind of like have to, tap into, and not everybody's open to it, and that's okay.
It's true.
Um,
Yes, you're right. 100%. And you will attract the people that you are meant to work with,
mhm.
and they will be attracted to you because you are the person that's meant to work with them. So
Yeah.
on that note, I'm sure that you are definitely catching the attention of a lot of listeners. And I personally can't say enough about Chelsea. I have her information in the episode notes, but for people who are listening, who want to find you and want to work with you, how can they work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram is where you'll find me posting and sharing things. And you can just DM me on Instagram if you want to set up a little consult to see if we would be a good fit to work together. So my Instagram is Chelsea Leupold Fertility. So last name spelled Leupold Fertility. And then my website is just chelsealeupold.com, and you'll see some information about my services. You can email me through there. And I'm sure, Michelle will get all the correct spelling and everything. But even if you just have a question, you just want to chat, you just want, to feel heard. I love hearing from people. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome, Chelsea. So yes, so if everybody's listening, I have all the information, all the right spelling, everything in the episode notes. You can find it right there. And Chelsea, it was such a pleasure talking to you. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. It was an honor.
So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.